The Guardians might have taken a well-deserved day off, but because we cover your team every day, your Guardians every day, we are here for you every day, even on the Guardians off day. And today, we're taking your questions. So, what do we make of college pitching this year? What stats and trades translate best to the majors? What to do about the Guardians pitching pipeline that has seemed to hit a snag? And is it time to see Juan Breo or Daniel Schneemann? All coming up on today's Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Locked On Guardians Negative Podcast. I'm kidding. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to PrizePicks.com/LockedOnMLB. Use the code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for first deposit match up to $100. I want to give a shout out to Everydayer Scott Hauser, who had a little great bit of information that he remembered watching the last perfect game no hitter for Cleveland, I should say. And that when it happened, it was on UAB 43, which anyone who listens to this show knows. Listen, I grew up without cable. UAB 43 is the reason I became a baseball fan. I would go to my grandma's and be able to watch games, and I would listen to games. But watching on 43 with Jim Corrigan was like, that was
my time.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I love, that is the one thing, like, I love interleague play now just because I can listen to him, 3 times a year, 6 times a year, whatever it is. It's like I get to have those points where I still get to reminisce. So that was a fun little fact of information. So I wanted to throw that out there for anyone who's like me, who has those real fond remembrances.
I watched a lot of WAB back in the day. I loved the theme song for the Tribe. Yeah. That was a lot of fun. Yeah.
So was the Cavs stuff too. Like it was a lot of good stuff on there. And it's just a shame, like, because that was a way for people to watch the game that was not like paywalled, or you could watch it with an antenna. Like you didn't have to have cable. It was there's the real bad thing with, Bally's, if I'm going to risk getting myself in trouble, it's just like, hey, it's a not great app that maybe works for you. Sometimes doesn't work at all when people try to watch, and you only have one way of watching now, and that cuts off some younger fans from ever getting exposure.
By the way, before we get into this, someone asked us about college pitching this year in today's mailbag, but I'm going to get into this real quick because you brought it up previously. I'm watching the Texas A&M and Arkansas game because there are no off days for watching baseball, and they showed a graph between Paul Skeens and Hagen Smith. Hagen Smith has a lower batting average against, a higher K per 9, lower ERA, and he's 9-0 this year. I know pitcher wins don't mean crap, but 9-0. Hagen Smith has better numbers than Paul Skeens. That's I don't know, man.
I mean, the inflation started to happen last year in terms of home runs and stats. But the thing that Skeens absolutely kills him on is walk rate. Skeens' walk rate was well. I mean, listen, Hagen Smith had his injury in high school. He's been fine since then. They're all going to get hurt at some point. Like, if it's not constant injuries, if we're going to eliminate everyone who's had Tommy John, then we have 4 pitchers left in this draft.
Right.
It's just the way of it. But Skeens last year, a 1.47 walk rate.
Yeah.
Like, Smith has some control issues. And that's like, I know some people have asked me too on Twitter, like, can he be better than Skeens? He's a lefty, he's missing as many bats. It's like, no, that the control and command for Skeens was a great hire than Smith. But Smith is great. Like, honestly, I vacillate all the time. There's 1A and 1B in this class. And then I'm very close to making Smith third, just because some of the warts on the other guys versus a guy who's this dominant and I'll go back.
Hitting offense, yeah.
It's like, I'll go back. Listen, I was the high man on Kyle Bradish years ago because that dude dominated in an environment that is the worst environment to pitch in. So you want to look for the guys who perform well when they shouldn't, and you found a good player. And right now, no pitcher should perform well.
Yeah, in theory. All right, well, we'll get to some more college talk today because we have some questions there. Of course, it's an off day, so we want to talk draft as well. But our first question in today's mailbag is from Jaker Bronny on Twitter X. I put it X in the headline, but it's Twitter for us.
It's Twitter. It's Twitter.
Yeah. So very quickly, though, we wanted to this is a procedural question. So Why is Angel Martinez in the 6-day AIL, and why is Daniel Espino using an option year when both are essentially out for the year? First off, I will say I saw an Instagram video of Angel Martinez swinging a bat in a cage. I was told that from the Guardians themselves, their player development, that they were hopeful that Angel Martinez would be back this year. They made it seem like he was going to be out for the year. So if he's swinging in a cage, that's just batting practice. I don't know. It might be dry swings, whatever. It's a good sign. So maybe he'll be back. I don't know. But the real answer here, this is just a quick question. The real answer here, though, is because when Angel Martinez got hurt in spring training, he fouled a ball off his toe and had a bone bruise or, whatever, a fractured toe, whatever it was. He was still on the Major League roster. He had not been optioned to AAA at that point yet in the minors. So they had to put him on the Major League injured list. And then he went down to AAA to rehab that injury, and then they would have optioned him down from rehab. But unfortunately, that's when he fractured his hamate. So he is still part of the Major League roster, which is, according to MLB rules, he had to be placed on the Major League injured list. So it's a technicality. So yes, they're not choosing to give him Major League service time.
So never put minor league players in the spring training roster is what we take away. I'm kidding.
This is why like Chase DeLauder was not part of the Major League roster in spring training. He was a camp invite, so they're not choosing to give him service time here. It's a technicality. They have to. Now, Daniel Espino was optioned before they announced his injury. So there was some tricky timeline stuff there. Like, did they know he never actually before the option?
Yeah, but he never pitched or did anything in spring.
No, he never got in a game. So they were able to kind of get away with that one. But I mean, it was definitely like a little tricky. If there was some investigating into that, I could see some questions being asked, but it was tricky. But
I think because he didn't play, they were safe. I think that's basically what it comes down to. It's like if he had played, it would have been something. But
if there was an investigation into this somehow, I think it would go away. I don't think it would be serious. But the real thing on Espino is he's going to get an extra option year. So he's been optioned down. They're quote unquote burning an option this year from him being hurt and not being on the Major League injured list. But when players miss a full year as a minor leaguer and they still have options remaining, you could apply for a fourth option year. The Guardians did this with, I believe, Giancarlo Mejia, and I know they did with Sam Hentges. So you can get the option year back, and they're going to get the option year back. This happens more often than you would think, to be honest. So Espino he won't get the extra option year until he burns his third. So next year he'll go in with 2, and then hopefully he pitches next year, for God's sake. And then the year after that, hopefully he pitches. He's down to 1 option, or he doesn't get option at all. But until he gets to 0, they don't get the option back. They'll have to apply for it, but he should get the option back at some point if needed. Maybe we're going to be positive today. We're going to say it won't matter because by the time Daniel Espino gets to 1 option left, he'll be in the majors and he'll be up to stay. How about that? How's that for positive, Jeff?
Hopefully.
Next question from a YouTuber, everydayer Aaron Botke. Which stats, traits translate to MLB success? Which stats just possible struggles for Bazzana and Condon? Jeff, what stats or traits do you think translate best to the pros?
Well, you want to see. So, I mean, I spent a lot of time looking at this. One is an important thing is a K percentage under 20. I found almost no, and this is why I like Jace Violet. A lot of guys are talking about him, and I've been one of them. But it's going to be interesting to watch because he has been over 20 his entire college career, and there's not a lot of those guys who end up being successful. Between 6 and 20% is where you want to be, because weirdly, if you're too low, it's probably some kind of unsustainability or bad swing that is making you get there. So 6 to 20%, you'd like to see more walks than Ks. Walk rate doesn't translate. You still want to see that they have an idea of how it works. And then K performance. It's funny because when I started out doing this many, many years ago, I was like, oh, people are making too much of a deal out of the Cape. Like Will Craig, this power hitting right-handed bat from Wake Forest, this guy's really good. He's been really good all these years. Seth Beer was the same story. Power hitting guy who was really well, who was just dog water on the Cape, and both those guys didn't turn into anything. And I just slowly but surely learned, the reason this is a big deal and the reason I need to take it more seriously and not just big small sample sizes, because Pete Alonso is really the only way I can find who didn't play well there, who ended up translating to the majors. It's the best of the best in a wood bat league, and some guys just don't hit well with wood. When it comes to these two guys, what concerns me? Bazzana, we have such a small sample. I would like to see more of what he would do with velocity. The data on it isn't usable right now because it's for either of these hitters. There just isn't enough experience with velocity. For Condon, it's size is a concern.
Velocity.
Velocity, but it's like size is a concern. People are like, oh, 6'6" is good. 6'6" is historically not good. Like big hitters get busted inside. They have problems staying healthy. You want your power hitter to be more 6'3", 6'4". The history of top prospects who are 6'6" or bigger is terrible. For every Stanton and Judge that people want to talk about, we can bring up many other players. And why am I not bringing them up now? Because I can't always remember. Josh Borchard.
Joe Borchard for the White Sox.
Joe Borchard's White Sox. There you go.
Yeah.
Who was the number one prospect in baseball at one point in time. Like big guys, it is a rough history, and that is a concern there. But here's the thing. I'll go on record again and say I would have taken these guys number one overall in 2021 and 22. And I'm even debating last year. Like more and more, I'm starting to think I might like them. Skeens is probably in retrospect should have been my number one over Cruz. That was a mistake. But yeah, these guys would be right up there in that discussion. So they're great. It's picking nits, but those are my concerns.
I also have a lot of the same concerns and share a lot of the same traits that Jeff does. I think make guys successful. I'll get into a couple of them here on the other side, and we've got more questions to talk about. We're going to talk about Daniel Schneemann and Juan Brito a little bit. We'll talk more about the shortstop issue. We'll see if the Guardians would like to reverse a trade, and we'll talk about what are the Guardians going to do with their pitching factory that seems to not have a lot of pitchers right now. So those are all questions you asked us, and we're going to continue to answer on today's Locked On Guardians. One place you can be sure of to have be stocked is Supply House. Get supplies that from sites that is made from skilled traders. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Easy to use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands. Get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get an expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business. Talk to a real person every time. How important is that? Pros and skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining Supplyhouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, so you get a real person every time when you need parts or supplies. Free shipping, discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at Supplyhouse.com/T-M and order plumbing, HVAC, electrical supplies from anywhere for just a few clicks at Supplyhouse.com. Can't make it to the Guardians game on Friday when they debut their City Connects. You can listen to all of the action on your SiriusXM app by just searching Guardians. You'll just have to rely on Tom Hamilton and Jim Rosenhaus to describe the City Connects to you, and their opinions may vary than yours. I don't know, but you can go back and you can listen to that if you can't make the game on Friday. Maybe you're doing something else. That's okay. Twins in town.
ESPN gave it a C grade on the jersey. I saw today.
Yeah,
I thought it was. I don't know. It was weird to grade jerseys. That's just me.
It is kind of weird. I thought it were fine. I mean, there are things I liked and didn't like, but again, if you love them, that's great. If you don't, somebody else does, and that's all that matters. Not everything is going to be for everybody. So going back to Aaron's question, I agree with you, Jeff, on the fastball velocity thing. I was actually watching Oregon State and Arizona before we started recording, and I saw Bazzana strike out on a high 96-mile-an-hour fastball. Again, not something he sees a lot. So you're sitting there saying, oh, he doesn't handle velocity well. Well, maybe. He hasn't seen a lot. The biggest thing with that is 2
doubles on velocity in the same game, too.
Well, the one double was a slider. I don't know about the second double. But just because he has the velocity doesn't mean he won't, because guys train for this stuff. And when you see it more often, you're going to see velocity in the majors. You're going to get more reps against it. So I think Bazzana is a guy who's going to get better against velocity. I truly do, because what has this guy done that he hasn't gotten better at every year? I mean, he is not a guy who is satisfied with being just okay. Like he works his butt to the bone to get better at everything. And I can't imagine that he's not going to get better with more exposure.
I know people will very quickly, but Condon works hard too. I agree. Like you
not saying
these guys all work hard, But the one thing, and I just want to say again, is when I talk to people who cover this game in depth and in detail, who know more than me, they talk about Bazzana's work ethic in a way I've never heard described before. So that
Jeff
is why
Potts was on our podcast saying he compared it to Kobe Bryant. Like, that's how good it is.
And Jeff Ponce knows more about what's going on in and inside of college baseball as anyone. If you want someone who could spill tea, that's the dude. So yeah, he's in the know.
And I watched Condon struggle against velocity a few weeks ago too, against pitchers that weren't good either, but it was high velocity. And I think he might get better too, because again, he just hasn't seen it a lot. So you can't sit there and say, well, he's going to struggle with it. He might, but you haven't seen enough to know for sure. But I agree with you. The being bigger is kind of a struggle. The cape makes a big difference. You know, is the cape an end all be all? No, it's not. There are instances where guys have not worked out from the cape. But if you are bad on the cape, most likely you are not going to be good in the pros. Like that is.
There's been guys who have been good on the cape who failed, but there's not a lot of guys who have been bad on the cape and been successful. Yeah.
Work ethic, again, like we're talking about these two guys, that's a trait that you have to have great makeup to succeed. You cannot get alone in baseball on talent. And that's why we look at things like chase rate. We look at things like contact rate. Contact rate and chase rate in college are the two biggest things. Even in high school, there's no data for this. So here's a good tip. Any high school stats you see out there, any of them, stats, period.
Ignore all of them.
Are garbage. They're all garbage. All high school stats. The only thing you want to look at one high school stat.
Summer data is good because it's
summer data is good. If they're playing on Team USA, that's interesting to look at. But high school stuff, those are all about traits. When you are scouting a high school player, it is literally all about tools and traits. And this guy's swing is good, or this guy's swing isn't, or he does this well. The stats are all garbage. But chase rate and contact rate are huge predictors of future success. If a guy's got bad chase rates and bad contact rates, if he can't do it in college, he's not going to do it in the pros. Those are not things you get better at. All right, let's move
on. Swing decisions almost never change. Like it is.
Yeah.
Exceptionally
Approaches
rare.
don't change. Yes.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard. You have to be very good to change those things. B. Sudi on Twitter. A common theme of the show is college pitching has been horrendous this year. True. Another common theme is offensive power numbers are inflated. Is the college pitching bad because the bats are juice, or the actual underlying numbers showing a lack of quality pitching? I think it's both. I think there is a lack of quality pitching in this draft, but I also think the bats are juice. I think it's both things, and that's the bats being juiced are hurting pitchers a little. Yeah.
The ball is also juiced. The bat and ball are messed with.
Yeah. I kind of wonder if the ball is a bigger deal than we're thinking, because
I think it is.
We are seeing stuff about how the bats are checked a little more, and like there are teams that are getting around it. But again, I think we've heard this before. There are a lot of teams who are doing this. And by the way,
there's no incentive.
Brandon Montgomery back to the dugout with a nasty slider.
Whew. There is no incentive to be the whistleblower, because it feels like
you're probably doing it too. Yeah.
Which is what we're kind of hearing when we talk to people. I forgot what I was going to say, so go ahead.
I think there are some pitchers maybe being hurt. But here, the other thing too is that ERAs in college don't mean anything. Yeah, because official scoring decisions in college could be inconsistent. Defenses in college are bad. So, like, ERA is something you can't look at in college for pitchers. It's a lot of strikeout and walk stuff. But I do think probably some pitchers are being hurt, and more so than the bats are being. I think everyone knows the bats are an issue, but I think the pitchers are being hurt by it a little bit.
And the other thing I have to just say is, unfortunately, pitcher development is kind of atrocious in college. And the way, a lot of pitchers are not encouraged to use more than one off-speed pitch because they can get by with that. It's a lot of heavy fastball reliance. You have places like Wake that are doing the good fight, but there's a lot of terrible places that abuse arms.
It hasn't worked out yet.
And, right now you're looking at pitching traits, and there's this matchup that you can't watch, which is if you have ESPN Plus, you can probably watch it. I mean, Ryan Prager, I'm debating like if he's fourth or fifth on my college pitcher list. Like Prager versus Smith is a really fun matchup. There are guys who are a little bit
before.
I like him more than Santucci. I think the control is there to make him. Santucci might have a little more fun ceiling, but like Santucci's not a big guy either, and he's struggled with consistency and
health too.
Yeah. Health, and so I think you're looking for traits, and you're looking for things that can stand out. And hitters, I think, are more developed at this point than pitchers. And that's what we're seeing in terms of the way that players are coached up.
And like you said, look for pitchers who are succeeding in environments they shouldn't succeed in.
Yep.
All right, we got to talk a little more about Daniel Schneemann and Juan Brito. We're going to talk a little about Gabby Arias. We're going to talk about a trade the Guardians wanted back and what to do with this pitching pipeline that, hey, there might be one guy emerging that I'm excited about once again. We'll get to that. And yes, it's going to happen. Yes, let's get into crazy coming up here on Locked On Guardians.
So it's winner take all time at the NBA and NHL. And right now, FanDuel has you covered during this time of year of playoffs galore. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, pair props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. Let's jump over there real quickly and see what is looking fun over at FanDuel. Was that I saw? Let's look at the MLB odds again. And we talked about yesterday the Twins, and one of our everydayers had a great comment on why it is that the lines could be shifting. Paul Skeens, we talked about Skeens, that his over under in strikeouts in his next start is 6.5. I need to see who he's against. San Diego. I'm probably gonna take the under.
Cubs.
But
it's Cubs.
Cubs.
Mm-hmm.
On this heading. SG, maybe I don't understand those words. And down there, it's Cubs. I would definitely take the under then, but check it out for yourself with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
Check out the Guardians in action on Friday and all weekend long against the Minnesota Twins. Big matchup. Guardians get to avoid Pablo Lopez. They get to avoid Joe Ryan. And you're going to want to hear all of it on the SiriusXM app. Just search Guardians on your app. All right. Let's get into some minor league stuff. We've done a lot of draft stuff, Jeff. Our buddy, Fran Mills Eyebrow, an everydayer or guy who listens a lot and seems to enjoy himself. How are you getting Daniel Schneemann to Cleveland? And don't tell me 71 North for 2 hours. How are you getting him up here? I
a helicopter then? If it's not going to be somebody going north for 2 hours?
I said a 2 hour. It should be a half-hour plane ride to Burke Lakefront Airport.
High-speed rail. That's why Ohio. That's what Ohio needs anyway.
Let's get it.
A high-speed rail.
Don't tease me with public infrastructure and transportation that I love. Okay, don't tease me. I know it's never happening. Honestly, I don't know. Like, what is the path here, and what do you expect?
You and I disagree on this one. Like, that's so you take the more well-reasoned approach. If I'm being honest, like Justin's got the right approach, the one that makes the most sense. So I'll let him. I'll let him explain why I'm wrong. For me, at this point, it goes back to what I've said before. It's like Arias is in a bad place, and send him down to AAA because he can't get into a worse place. I don't think. See if he can play a little bit better. Because the one thing is like, yeah, teams aren't dumb, but teams also are looking for reasons when a guy has the tools and talent, like the Guardians just did with Florio, right? Like that guy had the tools and the talent. They were looking for a reason to buy high. He had a great year in AAA. And this was a guy they could have gotten free in June, and they traded a pitcher for him. Now, I mean, Morris isn't doing much, but he still had value. They give up value for a guy that they could have gotten free months before. So give Arias that chance, because with the tools, teams are going to want to talk themselves into him. And yes, then it makes you left-handed heavy, but it gives you a better chance of establishing a little more value, letting a team talk themselves into Gabby being like, we know we can defend. We know he's got power. He's playing now. He just never got that opportunity in Cleveland. We'll give him that opportunity. He's going to be an all-star shortstop for us. So I send him down. I know we'll miss having the right-handed bat. And I let Schneemann be the super utility guy who plays all over because dude's earned it. You know, he's worked his tail off. The splits aren't great. So again, the righty thing is an issue. It'd be nice if he was a right-hand bat. He's a lefty. So you're kind of then digging the same hole, which is why Justin's approach is smarter than mine.
I guess it just depends on your expectations. Like, are you okay with bringing him up and him being a guy who plays once or twice a week?
Yeah,
until he earns more playing time. I mean, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for a young guy to come up and play once or twice a week. I know he's 27, so he's not, the youngest, but I'm not disagreeing he hasn't earned his shot. It's just I find the roster fit to be very difficult here with what they already have. You've already got, it's very left-handed heavy, and maybe it doesn't actually matter because Gabriel Arias apparently this year can't hit righties or lefties, so it doesn't make a difference what hand you hit with if you can't hit anything. Schneemann can play some center. He can play all over the outfield. He can play every position probably except catcher, honestly. Do you platoon him with like Freeman in center? And
I view him as like a
Rocchio for a day if Rocchio needs a day off.
He's the backup. He's exactly what you said. Like, to me, he's the backup.
He's Mike Freeman. He's Mike Freeman.
Yeah. Maybe a better version. Of course, I was never much of a Freeman guy, so that's also on me. But
Freeman never had the exit velocities that Schneemann's putting up. That's the interesting
thing. So it's
thing.
I just say, like I said, I'm right now. Gabby is scuffling so badly, and Rocchio, he's kind of inconsistent. I am all for finding ways for this guy to get opportunities.
Yeah, sure. I don't know. I guess really, if you're gonna do it, it's Arias. There's nobody else in the roster you can send down. Laureano, unfortunately, is a guy you need for right-handedness. Fry can. I mean, I like Fry being able to play the corners. Lefties.
Fry should be playing more, not less. But Fry came up in that similar situation of being
and he earned more playing time, right?
And he earned more playing time. So that's.
Yeah, why not? I mean, I think Arias is the only actual move, but that's that means you're deciding this is it, and you're waiting for a trade to come to fruition.
And here's the thing: if Rocchio doesn't prove himself this year, you might be like, "Oh, what do you do?" Then maybe it's Bazzana.
You bring up Juan Brito. Yeah, speaking of Juan Brito, every day or on YouTube, Nolan Dasek, thoughts on when they give Juan Brito a look. So I was actually looking. I watched the Columbus game today during the day while I was working. Juan Brito had 3 more hits, including a home run that went 425 feet. So fair amount of power there.
Starting to turn it around after a rough start.
He is. He is really heating up. He had home runs 3 days in a row last week. He's having a weird year in that he is hitting lefties better than righties. It's a very, very small sample against lefties. Last year, he had better numbers against righties than lefties. So it's too soon to know if he's having any platoon issues or not. But I will say, platoons below AAA are garbage. If you're talking about any platoons, whether it's a switch hitter or not, that data is not meaningful until you get to AAA. So we're going to need more data to find out whether or not he has issues hitting lefties or not. I think it's probably just a small sample fluke, but we don't know. And I will say this too about Brito: he has yet to face a pitcher older than or younger than him in AAA this year. So he's facing a lot of older competition. That's a good thing. I don't know. The only way Brito comes up is if we get to June and Rocchio is hitting below 200. The walks are fine. That's fine. But how long can Rocchio hit 190, 315?
Well, running over his teammates 30 feet deep in the outfield.
Yeah, giving Tyler Freeman black eyes and busted lips. Right now, Rocchio has no average. He has no power. His only saving grace right now is walks. And that's fine because they're preaching don't chase results, chase good at bats. And that's generally what he's having. But how long can he hit 200, 315, 298 until you're like, okay, this isn't working? I don't know. My guess is probably June, sometime mid-June. Or, hey, maybe it's August and Travis Bazzana is your starting second baseman in August. I don't know. I'll say June, but it depends on Rocchio first. I don't think they give Brito a shot until they've decided Rocchio needs to go to AAA and work on some things.
I don't think it's this year. And the reason I say I don't think it's this year is if you call him up, if you call him up, then you have to shift Jimenez. And I don't think they want to do that in mid-season. I think if they shift him to shortstop, that they would want it to be something that is at the beginning of a year. So I don't think we really see Juan this year. I think maybe he gets called up as roster, expand thing or in August, but I think August at the earliest, but he's not going to come up in a regular role until next year.
Yeah, they did say in the offseason and spring training they didn't want to move Jimenez to short in season. They prefer not to do that. They prefer, doesn't mean they won't, but they prefer not to. But he does work out at short every day, just to be clear.
He does.
2 more questions. We're going to have to get these quickly. Mike Ozil on Twitter, given the lack of pitching depth, we were talking about Florial before, since other intriguing bats in the system, is it safe to say the Guardians would prefer Morris over Florial right now? I would say no, because Morris hasn't done anything with New York yet. He's been in the minors all year, and he hasn't even pitched that greatly, I don't think. But I don't know. I don't think Morris was going to stay healthy. Like he's healthy now, but would he be a good starting?
It's never been sustained.
Yeah, he's in a bullpen role for the Yankees in their system, and he's not even up right now because the Yankees bullpen is good. But I think if you had him as a starter here, he'd probably get hurt, and that was why I traded him in the first place. They didn't feel like he was going to be healthy. And
I just
Guardians
think
don't need more relievers right now.
It's a classic lose-lose trade. Like nobody's happy.
Yeah, I know. For a minute there, it seemed like we were going to be wrong on Florial, but right now it's going back in the other direction. So
and again, go back to Gabby Arias. Teams want to talk themselves into talent.
Yep. All right. Before we get out of here, one more from CTBB. I can never get his Twitter handle right, but I know he's an everyday listener and he is a follower of both.
I always want to say Seattle, but I know it's not.
I always want to say Seattle
BB, but I know it's not that.
Yeah. Wants to know what they do with the pitching because they don't have any blue chip pitching prospects right now. What should they do? Well, my answer is Doug Nikhazy has turned it around. I'm going to choose to believe that. 25 strikeouts in 18 innings, 5 walks, no runs allowed so far. He has changed his arm slot. He's throwing more strikes. He only threw, I think, 50-something pitches in 4 innings tonight. So his command and his efficiency is better. Count me in. I can't quit Doug Nikhazy, so he's the next guy up. And also draft a lot of pitchers on day 2. All these college arms that we're talking about, draft like 5 college pitchers on day 2.
Yeah, and then on day 3, take a bunch of the high school kids, because like Milwaukee did a year ago, because there's always interesting high school kids. For me, it's start promoting guys. Like Tugboat has no reason to be where he is. Austin Peterson has no reason. Parker Messick. I'm not saying these are impact guys, but I do think you don't take a Messick in the second round if you don't think he's going to be a major league starter. So you take a Parker Messick in round 2 to be a quick moving guy, not for him still to be an A-ball. So start moving guys up. Like I understand like the good organizational soldier, and like they make more money each level in the minors. You get a higher pay. So it's like moving a guy down now is a bigger impact than in years past. But like at some point you have to just move the guys up who actually have a future with this team and not wait till after the draft when you're going to make a bunch of cuts to move guys up. Like Messick should be in AA. Tugboat, they have nothing to prove at their level. Start promoting them so you have someone who can help sooner rather than later.
I agree. They got to figure out how to backfill better. That's their problem. But they've got a lot of injuries. We were just talking off air the other day about the 2022 draft class and how 8 of the pitchers in that class, 5 of them have had surgeries and 3 of them haven't even made their pro debut yet because of injuries. So that's the other issue too. Also, that's why you take more pitchers, because you know what? If you take 10, if 10 of your 21 picks are pitchers, assume 5 will get hurt and the other 5 you'll be able to have and figure out what to do with them. Not to say you should overdraft anybody or draft guys you don't like, but
draft for trades, draft for success.
Yeah, and I'm starting to think it might be easier to trade hitters for pitching these days. I used to think it was easier to trade pitching for hitting, but now I'm starting to think the other way around because of look what the Baltimore Orioles have been able to do, right? They were able to trade hitters for Corbin Burns. So
because hitters can maintain their value
a little more reliability.
Successful. Yeah,
exactly.
But we are Jeff, reliably here quick. For you. Oh,
yes. The Twins over the weekend. So we'll recap that on Monday. Big series of the Twins and the New York Mets and Francisco Lindor are coming to town Monday. It is Francisco Lindor's first game in Cleveland since 2020, but technically the first time in front of fans since 2019. How are the fans going to receive him? How do you feel about Francisco Lindor? Leave us a comment on that, and we will talk about the upcoming series with Lindor returning to Cleveland on Monday.
But we'll be back on Monday. Thank you for joining us. Remember to rate and review, download daily, hit the little bell, and give it a thumbs up and comment. Thank you all for joining us, and go Guardians. Go.